Hello everyone, Anita here and welcome to another art chat. Today we're going to be talking about some watercolor basics, or rather I will be taking you along a trip of me learning watercolor basics. If you have been watching my recent speed paints, you've probably heard me complaining about the fact that I don't know anything, or at least not much, about my own watercolors. And recently it occurred to me that besides just trying out my colors and mixing particular favorites, I don't really do much with my own watercolors. I don't know what colors mix well, what shades I can achieve with different watercolors. So today we're going to be creating our own watercolor chart. The reason I want to do this is because, I'm a self-taught artist, you know that by now. So the way I actually approach painting and learning is that I tackle one thing at a time. So when I paint and I run across a problem, that's when I solve it. So I don't think ahead of time, eventually I will probably need color charts, so I'll make it ahead of time. No, I'm just going to it has to mature. I have to mature to the idea that I need a watercolor chart. And recently that finally happened. So I figured, this is the time when I can actually do it. We can do it together as part of the art chat because it's something really, really interesting to do. So that idea of creating a color chart of the need to have more colors, actually it was kind of growing in my head for the past few weeks. But it really appeared in week 10 of the 52 weeks illustration challenge, when I've noticed that while choosing my color palettes, I've kind of limited myself to just the pans, the colors that I have in my watercolor palette. And that's not good. I mean, there are so many different color combinations I could have used except, red and blue. And when I was thinking about it, for the past few weeks, the past few challenge weeks, I've been just doing exactly the same. I've been just choosing the basic colors, and that was fine with me. I remember still that a year or two ago, I needed just 5 colors, and I was perfectly happy. And all of a sudden, that's not enough. I need more. That's when I started kind of researching what I could do to improve that. And I saw a lot of artists making their own watercolor charts. So what they basically do is they kind of mix different colors together and make it like a log that you can look afterwards back on your mixing choices, and you have easy access to all the colors because you've mixed them before. So it cuts the time needed for preparation for the painting because I can just easily go to my backlog of colors and just choose appropriate shades of whatever fits my image, my idea. So it's a really, really good tool to have. But before we begin with making our own color charts, we have to do something different. And it occurred to me that I've never really done that. What we have to do is chart our own watercolor set. I'm saying ours, but it's really just mine. You probably have yours, so you should probably chart your own, not mine. I think that would be more beneficial. So I own 2 watercolor sets. One of them is the main one and the other one is just small that I keep filling, so it's not complete yet. So what I've decided to focus on is the big watercolor set, which is a 24 color Van Gogh set. When I was looking around how other people approached this idea, I realized just that the best choice would be to just make my own grid and color it in. I didn't want to make it so basic. I like when it's a little bit, fancier, just a little bit. And so I started with just an A4 piece of paper, and that's my regular Arches watercolor paper. However, it's not the 300 gram one. It's actually the lightweight version because that's all I have at the moment. But the color is exactly the same as the 300 gram, so that's perfectly fine. For these kind of things, it's best if you use the paper that you would normally use for painting. So I actually use 2 kinds of paper, but the Arches is my paper of choice, and it's the cream colored paper, so that's the one I've used. So I've started with taping it around evenly on all sides, and then I measured the inside and divided it accordingly. It depends on your own watercolor amount of pans you have or the watercolors that you have. In my case, I needed 24 spaces. And then I've decided to make little labels next to each of them. And so I've written down approximately how I would like the names and the numbers of the colors to be spaced in a little square, and then I cut it out and I used it as a template to draw next to each space used in my chart. The information I have on that little label is just the name of the color and the number of the color according to the, the Van Gogh charts, the light fastness, and then the pigments that have been used in creating that color. And the pigment, you don't really have to put it there. It was just something that I thought, I was actually thinking if I should put it on that label or not. And I decided, you know what, eventually, perhaps, maybe someday I will need it, and then I will already have it there, so I won't have to look again for that information. The next thing I've decided to do was actually outline each space with a black fine liner, the same one I would normally use for my own paintings. And it's not necessary, but I thought about it and I figured, you know what, that's what I always use. So my logic told me that perhaps this way I will be able to kind of see how this watercolor will fit within my style. It will kind of like, this is how I paint. I outline my paintings. For me, it was logical to do the same thing with the chart. And so I've outlined every single thing except the outside of the chart because it was still taped. So I figured I would do it after I've removed the tape. It took some time. It took me about an hour to actually draw this in completely, but these kind of tasks are not something to be rushed. You have to be prepared to spend like a nice evening just doing basic watercolor things. And actually it's really enjoyable. It's very relaxing to do. And especially because you don't have to think about it too much. It's just something that you're preparing only for yourself. And in my case, when most of my work is for others, it was just really, I was like really thinking that, oh my god, this is going to help me in the future. And so it was really fun. And I had a stream in the background. I was just watching and filling in the spaces. And so the way I actually fill the spaces is that I start with a very saturated color and then I try to kind of fade it out towards the other side of the little box. And I'm not really paying attention to keeping in with the lines. It's not really necessary. If you're really OCD about these things, of course you can. I'm not really that much, so it was fine. And as you can see, I also filled in all the little labels with some masking fluid because even though it took another like 10 minutes, I figured it would create a much nicer even effect at the end. And as you can see, I'm kind of like evening out the gradients as I go, because the way I paint with very flat washes most of the time. So for me, it was really logical to kind of recreate that with the color swatches. I was interested mostly in how the flat colors look like, so even gradients, even washes. If you're looking for different effects, like how the water reacts with the watercolor, that's how you should prepare your chart, just so that it fits your way of painting. So for me, when I work with flat washes, it was just, just the way to prepare it was to make it as flat as possible. And so I keep adding water as I go, just thinning out the paint. So I would dip my paintbrush in the water, not cleaning it out, just dipping it in the water, kind of drying it a little bit, then putting it on the paper, trying to smudge it a little bit, going up and down a few times, just trying to even out the wash. And eventually you're getting a hang of it. You know how much paint you need, how far in the little grid you have to go to get the even wash. And at some point it just started to be really like methodical, is that even a word? It was just really one after the other, you just went forward, and it was really a nice thing, nice evening too. And it surprised me because some of the colors I never really paid attention to. But all of those colors work differently, they don't work the same. So for example, some of them were more gritty, I suppose, more powdery, some of them were clearer, some of them had much more pigment than the others. Of course, I knew that because when I was using paint, I could notice that, but I never had them laid out like this, one to the other, where I could actually see the difference between each of them. And another thing that started bothering me, and it never bothered me before, it's another one of those examples of being self-taught, my way, is that I start to get bothered by certain things at a certain time. And it was the exact same way when I started noticing that paintings, some kind of color value in them, the contrast between certain things have to be very distinct. And once I noticed it in other paintings, it started bothering me and I needed to implement it in my own painting. And the same thing happened here. It started bothering me that I didn't know the names of the colors. I called it like that one orange that was next to the red, or that middle blue or the light blue. The only blue I knew was the ultramarine, which is my favorite blue, but otherwise I didn't know the colors, and it really started to bother me, especially when I got some questions in the comments under my videos, like what color is this one, what color is the other one. I was like, well, green? It's not exactly the kind of thing you want to answer when someone is asking you. And you know, probably everybody does these kind of charts at some point. I always make one when I get a new watercolor set, but this is only a basic kind of trying out how the color works, how they fade out, so kind of like here, but I never make like one official chart with names, with codes, with everything that will actually help me eventually to fill back my palette. It never really bothered me before, and all of a sudden it does. And as I was filling in this chart, it occurred to me that I didn't really know my colors at all. I knew some of them, of course I have a few favorites, but I don't use all of them, and it surprised me that I had so many different colors that I've never even used before. And it's really sad when you think about it, because there's such a potential in that, and I felt it was such a waste. So this video is actually a part 1 of 2 videos about color mixing and making color charts, because once I finished recording all the footage, it was so long that I just couldn't fit it into one video. So if you're like me and you kind of just paint, and you're also self-taught, or you just want to have fun and do something different, or maybe just go back to basics, I really encourage you to just sit back for one evening and make your own watercolor chart, because it opens a lot of different possibilities. So if you enjoyed this video, please leave me a like and subscribe if you would like to see more. And next week we're going to talk about some color mixing, so please stay tuned for that. It's actually really fun and very addictive, like really, really, really addictive. So thank you very much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Bye!